Hello, my name is Matthew. I'm a strategic systems consultant here at Quest. And in this video, I want to tackle reporting within GPOADmin. So GPOADmin, of course, is first and foremost a governance product designed around providing an administration layer over group policy that introduces versions, much more granular security and approval and controls. But one of the other things that it does really well is allows for better insight into the group policy infrastructure. And it does that in large part through a lot of very powerful reports. When it comes to reports, there's really two ways of accessing those reports. Some reports are accessible contextually. So for instance, if I look inside my Vinton container here, take a look at my MV server GPO and go to show history, reverse sort by date, and select version 31 and 30, right click. When I click differences, that's going to launch a difference report with the objects that I'm interested in already added and in place. There's other places where contextual reports are available as well. So anytime there's a scope of management within GPOADmin, you can right click, go down to reports, and run, for instance, a latest live differences or policy analysis. Policy analysis is a kind of report that is executed against a scope of management, an OU, domain object, site. So that's one way of getting at reports, but all of those reports that you can get to in that fashion are also available under the reports node. So the reports node, when you start it, likely if you haven't used it, is going to be completely blank without any saved reports. To create a new report, we just right click on that blank space, go to new, and we can create kind of organizational containers if we wish, or folders. In this particular case, I'm just going to click new report. And this kind of brings up the master list of reports that I can run. And these reports are broken down into sort of two different categories. There's the control object reports, and there's also the diagnostic and troubleshooting reports. You can think of the differences between these as controlled object are really reports on GPOADmin type things. Like they're going to be restricted to the objects that are under management for one, and they're going to leverage GPOADmin. So for instance, concepts like deployment, that's only exists around controlled objects. There's no concept of deployment in native group policy management. The diagnostic and troubleshooting reports, these are designed for more again, more technical sort of reporting around group policy. These can work against things that are both within GPOADmin as well as outside of GPOADmin. And you'll notice that, again, they have a lot of technical aspects to them. Group policy object consistency, linked and unlinked reports, inactive policy settings reports. A quick note here. With GPOADmin, particularly if you've watched some of my other videos, particularly those around providing the GPOADmin service account the least amount of privileges possible, I'm a big, I highly recommend giving that service account the least privileges as you can. But there are a couple reports in here that are impacted if you do least privilege. So one of those reports is the group policy results and group policy results difference reports. So these reports right here, they usually require administrative privileges on the endpoint where you want to where you want to create the GP results. Essentially, this is just a shell around the traditional Microsoft RSOP reports, which if you've used those in the past, you'll know require that level of permission. That's just kind of how they work. This report, group policy modeling, so this again is kind of a wrapper around the Microsoft group policy modeling reports. This one requires special dispensation to use it when you have a least privileged service account. There's actually information in the documentation. It involves creating a partition within Active Directory for GPOADmin to be able to create the to be able to do its modeling work. And there are, if I recall correctly, I believe the group policy object consistency report also requires administrative privilege on domain controllers, which again is not something I recommend giving. But those are it. That's all the reports that do depend on a higher level of privilege. So let's take a look at how to run a report. I'm going to choose group policy comparison report. So this report is a little different than the difference report. It's designed to compare more than two group policies together. This is really helpful if you've got multiple environments and there are some policies that should be very, very similar, if not identical, across these environments. This allows you to just basically line them all up and check them out. When we start a report, it's basically going to ask us information about what we want to look at. And this first question is kind of interesting and kind of important. Like I mentioned in another video about GPOADmin and multiple forests, if there's no trust in place, you have to install multiple GPOADmin instances. However, you are able, if you do have multiple instances, and if you connect those multiple instances using the same GPOADmin client, you can do reporting across those instances. And you can do that simply by control clicking and selecting the various services in this list. I'm only connected to one, so I don't have that ability, but it's not super obvious, but it's really powerful. You can basically select multiple instances and the reporting will then you'll be able to select the objects from the multiple instances in the next screen. So once we select the service or instance, you can see that it provides a view of the version control system. And there's actually kind of two different ways you can do this. You can do it by container or by type. By type is basically just presents a big flat list by type of object. In this particular case, we can only select GPOs because that's what we're doing. I find container generally more useful because oftentimes we're dealing with a lot of policies and they're organized by container for a reason. But you can browse through the different containers and just put checkboxes next to the policies that you wish to compare with each other. Choose next. Gives us some options here around the versions. Looks good. And now we can either just simply run the report, save the report, or both. Choose finish. You can see that it is running that report. And if I look at the bottom here, it's done exactly what I told it to and run that difference report between all of those. So that's just generally how reporting works. I'd like to point out a couple of reports that are easy to miss, but I find very powerful and my customers tell me are very powerful. So one of those is the group policy object settings search report. This report allows you to do a full text search over group policy objects. So you'll notice here, because I'm going to be doing, more than just individual, I mean, of course, I could go and just select individual policies that I want to look for. But in reality, I just select the topmost container, the root, choose include subcontainer. So I look across everything, choose next, and now I can just put in search text. When I finish that, it's going to go and look inside the contents of all those group policy objects and find everywhere where access is either a definition for a setting or the setting itself. So as we look across each of these, you're going to have access be in this list everywhere. So it's basically full text searching, really handy, particularly if you're wondering whether anyone has set a particular setting before somewhere in your environment. So a couple of other really handy reports. Like I mentioned earlier, policy analysis is a great one. And it's actually down here in diagnostics and troubleshooting. Policy analysis allows you to choose an organizational unit, usually a scope of management, but I'm just going to choose the domain object right here and analyze all the group policies that would apply either directly or through inheritance and map out all their settings from a very technical level across a very large grid. This one can be a really large report, but when it comes to ultimately telling you like, okay, how am I getting the settings that I'm getting on an object within an OU? It's fantastic for that. One note on reports. Reports are very powerful. Their definitions are stored via XML, but GPOADmin currently does not have the capability to be able to schedule those and send those out on a regular basis to like an email address, something like that. I know it's something the development team is within their backlog. But yeah, currently it's an interactive report. So yeah, that is GPOADmin reporting in a nutshell. Thank you.